The rain had been falling all morning, soft at first, then steady, the kind that made the sidewalks glisten and turned the air into something thick and quiet. Inside the little cafe on Maple Street, the smell of coffee beans, warm bread, and cinnamon filled every corner like a familiar hug. Steam curled from the espresso machine, and the low hum of conversation mixed with the gentle clink of cups and spoons. It was the kind of place people came to slow down, even if just for 10 minutes. Behind the counter, she moved with quiet rhythm, wiping the surface, refilling the sugar jars, checking the pastry case. She'd opened the cafe 5 years ago, after working double shifts at diners and coffee shops for nearly a decade. It hadn't been easy. There were months when she wasn't sure if she could pay the rent, nights when she fell asleep at the kitchen table with bills spread out like puzzle pieces that never quite fit. But she'd kept going. For herself, yes, but mostly for the little girl now sitting at the corner table near the window, bent over a coloring book with her tongue poking out in concentration. The girl was 6, with wide brown eyes and curls that refused to stay in place no matter how many hair ties her mom used. She wore mismatched socks, one striped, one polka-dotted, and a slightly too big sweater that had once belonged to her mother. She'd just finished school and walked the 3 blocks from the elementary school to the cafe, backpack bouncing against her shoulders, as she did every weekday. Her teacher knew the routine. The neighbors waved. The barista next door saved her a cookie. This was her world, small, safe, and full of love. Her mom glanced over and smiled. "You hungry, sweet pea?" The girl looked up, pencil still in hand. "Can I have half a banana muffin? Only if you promise to eat your apple slices too." Deal. It was a simple exchange, the kind that happened 100 times a day in homes and cafes everywhere. But for them, it was everything. Because for a long time, it had just been the two of them. No help, no backup, no second opinion. Just a young woman who'd been left alone and scared, and the child who'd given her a reason to keep standing. She remembered those early days like they were yesterday. The nausea, the fear, the silence after the phone stopped ringing. He'd been charming, intense, full of big dreams and restless energy. They'd fallen fast, laughed louder than anyone else in the room, stayed up all night talking about everything and nothing. But when she told him she was pregnant, something in his eyes changed. Not anger, just panic, like he'd been handed a test he hadn't studied for and knew he'd fail. "I'm not ready," he'd said, voice tight. "I can't. I don't know how to be that person." She'd begged him to stay, just to talk, to figure it out together. But he'd packed a bag that same night, said he needed space, said he'd call. He never did. For months she cried in the shower so the baby wouldn't hear. She worked until her feet swelled, came home, made soup, read parenting books by flashlight after the baby finally slept. She changed her number, moved apartments twice, told only her closest friend the truth. She didn't want pity. She didn't want him showing up one day like nothing happened. She wanted peace. And slowly she built it, one shift, one bill paid, one bedtime story at a time. Now the cafe was her pride. Not fancy but clean. Not crowded but always full of regulars who knew her name and asked about her daughter. She'd painted the walls a soft sage green, hung local art, kept fresh flowers on every table in summer. People said it felt like home. That was the highest compliment she could imagine. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle. The bell above the door jingled. She didn't look up right away, just finished wiping the counter, humming under her breath. But then something made her pause. A shift in the air. A stillness. She glanced toward the door and froze. He stood there, water dripping from the shoulders of his dark coat, shaking an umbrella before folding it neatly. He looked older, more polished, more put together, but undeniably him. The same sharp jawline, the same way of standing like he owned the room even when he didn't mean to. His hair was shorter now, his suit expensive but not flashy. He scanned the cafe with the casual ease of someone used to being in charge. Then his eyes landed on her. Recognition hit like a wave, her breath caught. Her fingers tightened around the damp rag in her hand. 7 years. 7 years of silence, of wondering if he ever thought about her, if he ever regretted it, if he even remembered her face. And now here he was, in her cafe, in her life, in her quiet Tuesday afternoon. He took a step forward, then stopped. His expression shifted from calm confidence to something uncertain, almost wary. He opened his mouth, maybe to say hello, maybe to ask for a table. But before any sound came out, a small voice cut through the quiet. Daddy? Both adults turned. The little girl had looked up from her coloring book. She wasn't crying. She wasn't confused. She just stared at the man by the door with wide, curious eyes, head tilted slightly like she was trying to place a half-remembered dream. She'd never seen him before, not in person. But she'd seen the photo. Once, when she was 4, she'd found an old shoebox in the back of her mom's closet. Inside were a few trinkets, a concert ticket stub, a dried flower, a silver keychain shaped like a star, and one faded picture. A young man with messy hair and a crooked smile, arms slung around a younger version of her mom, both of them laughing under string lights. "Who's that?" she'd asked. Her mom had gone very still. Then she'd said softly, "That's someone from a long time ago." "But he looks like me," the girl had said, pointing to the man's eyes, same shape as hers. Her mom had closed the box gently and said, "Sometimes people look alike even if they've never met." But the girl remembered. And now, seeing this man, taller, sharper, but with those same eyes, something clicked in her 6-year-old mind. It wasn't logic. It was instinct, a quiet knowing. So she said it again, louder this time, voice clear and bright. "Daddy?" The word hung in the air like a bell that had just been struck. He went completely still. His face went pale. His eyes flicked from the girl to her mother, then back again, as if trying to solve a puzzle that had just rewritten itself. She, her mother, felt her heart hammering against her ribs. Every instinct screamed to scoop her daughter up, to shield her, to shut this moment down before it could hurt anyone. But it was too late. The word was out. The truth was standing right there in her cafe, dripping rainwater onto her floor. She forced herself to breathe, to move. She walked around the counter slowly, deliberately, and knelt beside her daughter's chair. "Honey," she said, voice low but steady, "why don't you go wash your hands? There's cookie dough in the back. I'll let you help me roll some for tomorrow." The girl blinked, then nodded. She hopped down, gave her mom a quick hug, and skipped toward the kitchen, glancing once over her shoulder at the man by the door. As soon as she was out of sight, the woman stood and turned to face him. He hadn't moved. He looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "You didn't know," she said. It wasn't a question. He swallowed hard. No, I didn't." His voice was rougher than she remembered. "I swear I didn't." She studied him, the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched at his sides. He looked genuinely shocked, not guilty in a sneaky way but gutted, like the ground had just dropped out from under him. "I tried to find you," he said quickly, as if afraid she wouldn't believe him. After I left. I called, I went to your apartment, but you were gone. Changed your number. I thought you didn't want me to find you." "I didn't," she said simply. "Not then. I was alone, pregnant, and you walked away. What was I supposed to do? Wait for you to change your mind?" He flinched. "I know, and I've regretted it every single day since." She didn't respond right away. She walked back behind the counter, more to put distance between them than anything. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up a clean mug and set it down again. "Do you want coffee?" she asked, because it was what she did. It was normal. It was safe, he nodded, still dazed. "Black, 1 sugar." Like always, she almost smiled. He remembered. Of course he did. Some things stick, even when people leave. She made his coffee in silence, the familiar motions calming her nerves. When she handed it to him, their fingers didn't touch. He took a sip, then looked toward the kitchen door. She's mine?" "Yes. How old?" 6, born in March." He closed his eyes for a second. "I missed everything. You chose to," he didn't argue. Just nodded, staring into his cup like it held answers. Outside, the rain started again, light, tapping against the windows. The cafe felt smaller now, charged with something heavy and unspoken. After a long moment, he looked up. "Can I see her again?" She hesitated. Every protective instinct in her screamed no. But she also saw the raw hope in his eyes, the same look she'd seen years ago when he talked about building something meaningful before fear got in the way. "She's just a kid," she said quietly. "She doesn't understand complicated things. If you're going to be in her life, even for 5 minutes, you don't get to disappear again. Not ever." "I won't," he said, voice firm. "I swear it." She studied him again. The CEO, the stranger, the father. She didn't trust him. Not yet, maybe not ever. But her daughter had already called him Daddy. And that changed everything. Tomorrow, she said finally. After school. She comes in around 3. You can sit with her for 20 minutes here in the cafe. No promises beyond that. He nodded, relief and fear mixing in his expression. Thank you. He didn't stay long after that. Drank his coffee quickly, left a generous tip, and walked out into the rain without looking back. She watched him go, then turned toward the kitchen. Her daughter stood in the doorway, flour on her nose, holding 2 lopsided balls of cookie dough. Is he really my daddy? She asked, eyes wide. She knelt again, brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead, and chose her words with care. Yes, baby. He is. Did he know about me? No, not until today. The girl thought for a moment, then shrugged. Okay, can I put chocolate chips in these? Her mom smiled, the tightness in her chest easing just a little. As many as you want. And for now, that was enough. The next morning came with weak sunlight and the smell of wet pavement. Inside the cafe, everything looked the same. The same chalkboard menu, the same mugs lined up on the shelf, the same quiet hum of the refrigerator in the back. But nothing felt the same. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, the shock, the guilt, the way his hands had trembled around the coffee cup. And then her daughter's voice, clear as a bell. Daddy. She'd spent half the night rehearsing what to say, how to explain, how to protect her child from a pain she couldn't even name. But when her daughter woke up cheerful and chattering about the nice man with the nice eyes, she realized there was no script for this. Kids didn't carry baggage the way adults did. They saw what was in front of them and trusted it until it proved otherwise. So she kept things simple. He's going to come by today after school, she said while packing her daughter's lunch. Just to say hello. You can talk to him if you want, or not. It's your choice, her daughter nodded seriously, as if this were perfectly normal. Okay, can I show him my drawing of the dragon? Sure, she almost laughed. Only a child could turn a life-altering moment into a casual art show. The day dragged. Customers came and went. Mrs. Chen with her usual green tea, the college students arguing about philosophy, the old man who read the paper in the same corner every afternoon. She smiled, took orders, steamed milk, but her mind kept drifting to 3 o'clock. Would he show up? What if he didn't? What if he did and said the wrong thing? What if her daughter got attached and he vanished again? By 2:45, her stomach was in knots. At exactly 3, the bell above the door chimed. He walked in, but not like yesterday. No expensive coat, no briefcase. Just dark jeans, a soft-looking sweater, and a small paper bag in his hand. He looked nervous. Younger somehow. Less like a CEO, more like the man she used to know. The one who laughed too loud at bad jokes and held her hand during thunderstorms. Their eyes met. He gave a small, hesitant nod. She pointed to the corner table, the one by the window where her daughter always sat. She's in the back washing her hands. She'll be out in a minute. He sat down slowly, placed the bag on the table, and smoothed his hands over his knees like he was trying to calm himself. A minute later, her daughter appeared, backpack still on, eyes lighting up when she saw him. You came back. I did, he said, voice softer than before. I brought you something. He opened the bag and pulled out a coloring book, full of animals wearing hats, and a brand new set of crayons. Her daughter gasped. For me? Just for you. She scrambled into the chair across from him, already flipping through the pages. This panda has a top hat, and this fox is wearing sunglasses. He smiled, a real one this time, warm and a little shy. I saw it and thought you might like it. She didn't ask him questions about where he'd been or why he left. She just colored, chattering about her teacher, her best friend, the squirrel that lived in the tree outside her classroom. He listened. Not the way adults sometimes pretend to listen while thinking about something else, but really listened. Nodding, asking gentle follow-ups, laughing at the right moments. From behind the counter, she watched. Her chest ached, not with anger, but with something more complicated. Relief? Sadness? Hope? She wasn't sure. After 10 minutes, her daughter looked up. Do you like cinnamon rolls? I love them, he said. Mom makes the best ones. Want one? Before he could answer, she was already waving at her mom. Can we have cinnamon rolls, please? She brought over 2 plates, setting one in front of each of them. As she placed his down, their eyes met again. A silent conversation passed between them. Gratitude, caution, a fragile truce. He took a bite. Wow, you still make them the same way, she nodded. Some things don't change. He glanced at her daughter, who was now carefully coloring a raccoon in purple. She's incredible. She is. She looks like you. A little. But she's got your eyes. He went quiet for a moment, staring into his coffee. I didn't know, he said again, like he needed to say it out loud one more time. If I had, I would have. You would have what? She asked gently. Stayed, called, sent birthday cards. It's easy to say now. He looked up, meeting her gaze without flinching. I know, and I don't expect you to believe me. But I've spent years wondering what I walked away from. I thought it was just us. I never imagined there was a her. Her daughter chose that moment to hold up her drawing. Look, the raccoon's name is Pickles. He leaned forward. Pickles is very stylish. I love the purple, she beamed. 20 minutes passed faster than she expected. When it was time for her daughter to start her homework, she didn't protest. She just closed her coloring book carefully, hugged it to her chest and said, See you tomorrow? He hesitated, then looked at her mother for permission. She gave a small nod. Yes, he said to her daughter. If that's okay. It is, her daughter declared, as if she'd just settled the matter for everyone. After she left for the back room, he stayed a few more minutes. Neither of them spoke at first. Then he said, Thank you for letting me see her. I didn't do it for you, she said honestly. I did it for her. She asked about you this morning, like it was the most natural thing in the world. He ran a hand through his hair. What did you tell her? That you didn't know about her? That you're here now, and that we'll take it one day at a time. He nodded slowly. That's fair. He stood to leave, then paused. Can I ask, what's her name? She almost smiled. Of course he didn't know. Lily, Lily, he repeated like he was memorizing it. It suits her. He left without another word. No grand promises, no dramatic speeches. Just a quiet exit, the bell chiming softly behind him. That night, after Lily was asleep, she sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, staring out the window. She thought about the early days, the hospital room, the first time she held her daughter, the nights she cried silently so Lily wouldn't hear. She thought about the man who'd just sat in her cafe, coloring with a child who called him Daddy without hesitation. She didn't forgive him. Not yet. Forgiveness wasn't something you handed out like sugar packets. But she saw something in him today, something real. Not the polished CEO, but the man underneath, scared and trying. The next day he came back. Same time, same sweater. This time he brought a small stuffed bear with a red scarf. Lily named it Mr. Buttons and carried it everywhere for the rest of the afternoon. On the third day, he asked if he could walk her to school in the morning. She said no, not yet. But she let him stay for 30 minutes instead of 20. By the end of the week, a routine had formed. He'd arrive at 3, sit at the corner table, and spend time with Lily. Sometimes they colored. Sometimes they played tic-tac-toe on napkins. Once he helped her build a tower out of sugar packets that collapsed in a giggling mess. He never pushed. Never asked for more than she gave. Never mentioned his job, his life in another city, or the future. He just showed up. One afternoon, as Lily was showing him how to draw a cat, you have to make the ears pointy like this. He looked up at her and said quietly, I used to be afraid of failing at everything, especially being a father. My own dad. He wasn't around much. I told myself I'd be different, but when it came time to step up, I ran. She didn't respond right away. She was wiping down the espresso machine, but she was listening. I thought if I stayed, I'd mess her up like he messed me up. He continued, but walking away, that was its own kind of mess, wasn't it? She stopped wiping. Yes, she said simply. It was. He nodded, eyes back on Lily, who was now trying to teach him how to braid yarn. I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try. She watched him for a long moment. The way his shoulders were less stiff. The way he laughed at Lily's silly jokes. The way he looked at her daughter like she was the most important thing in the world. Then keep showing up, she said. That's where you start. He did. But then, on the 8th day, his phone rang during their visit. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and stepped outside to take the call. Lily kept coloring, humming to herself. 5 minutes later, he came back, face tight. I'm sorry, he said. That was work. I might need to go back sooner than I thought. Her stomach dropped. Here it was, the moment she'd been waiting for. The moment he chose his old life over this fragile new one. Lily looked up. Are you leaving? He knelt beside her chair. "Not yet, sweetheart. But I might have to travel for a little while." "For how long?" "I don't know. A few weeks, maybe." Lily's lower lip trembled just slightly. She didn't cry, she was too proud for that. But her voice got small. "Will you come back?" He looked at her, then at her mother, and something in his eyes shifted. Like a decision had just been made. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'll come back. And I'll call you every night. I promise." Lily studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but you have to tell me a story when you call." "I will." After he left that day, the cafe felt emptier. Lily was quiet during homework, and when bedtime came, she asked, "What if he forgets?" Her mother tucked her in, brushing the curls from her forehead. "People who matter don't forget," she said. "And if he does, we'll be okay. We always are." But that night she lay awake again, wondering if she'd been foolish to let hope in, wondering if this was just another kind of goodbye in disguise. The next morning, before the cafe opened, there was a knock on the back door. She opened it to find him standing there, holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a box of pastries from the bakery down the street. "I couldn't leave without saying goodbye properly," he said, "and I wanted to talk to you. Alone." She let him in. They sat at a small table in the empty cafe, morning light streaming through the windows. "I'm not disappearing," he said before she could speak. "I have to go back for meetings. My company's at a turning point. But I've already told my team I'll be splitting my time. I'm keeping an apartment here. I'll be back in 10 days. And I'll call Lily every night like I promised." She looked at him, searching for doubt, for hesitation. She found none. "Why?" she asked. "Why now? Why her?" He took a deep breath. "Because for the first time in my life, I don't want to be afraid anymore. I spent years building a career so I'd never feel small again. But sitting with her yesterday, coloring a purple raccoon, I felt more whole than I ever have in a boardroom. She's my daughter, and I don't want to miss another minute." She didn't cry, but something inside her softened just a little. 10 days, she said. "You come back in 10 days, and you call every night. I will. And if you break that promise, I won't." She believed him. Not because he was perfect, but because he was trying. And sometimes trying was enough to start. As he stood to leave, he paused at the door. "What you built here. It's beautiful." She looked around the cafe, the chalkboard, the flowers, the worn wooden floors. "It is," she said. "But it wasn't built alone." She helped. He smiled. "Yeah, she did." Then he walked out into the morning light, and for the first time she didn't feel dread. She felt something close to hope. Quiet, cautious, but real. The 10 days passed slower than she expected. Every evening, right after dinner, Lily would sit cross-legged on the living room rug, phone pressed to her ear, listening as his voice came through the line, telling her about his day, asking about hers, reading a short story from a book he'd bought just for this. Sometimes he'd describe the city he was in, the tall buildings, the noise, the way the sky looked at night. Lily would close her eyes like she was trying to picture it all. "He sounds tired," Lily said one night after hanging up. "He probably is," her mom replied, folding laundry on the couch. "Big jobs take a lot of energy." "But he still calls," Lily said, as if that settled everything, and he did. Not once did he miss a night. Even when he was in meetings late or traveling between cities, he found a quiet corner, dialed the number, and kept his promise. It wasn't grand. It wasn't dramatic. But it was steady. And for a child who'd never known him, that consistency began to mean something. On the 10th day, just after lunch, the bell above the cafe door chimed. He walked in carrying a small suitcase and a paper bag that smelled like fresh-baked cookies. He looked tired. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his jaw, but his smile was real when he saw Lily sitting at her usual table, drawing a spaceship with 3 suns. "Back so soon?" she asked, eyes wide. "Told you I would be," he said, setting the bag down. "And I brought chocolate chip cookies from that bakery you liked." Lily scrambled up and hugged him. Quick, impulsive, the kind of hug only kids give when they're happy and not overthinking it. He froze for half a second, then hugged her back gently like she might break. Her mom watched from behind the counter, stirring milk into a cup of tea she didn't really need. She hadn't realized how much she'd been holding her breath until now. He stayed for the rest of the afternoon. This time he didn't just sit and listen, he helped. He wiped tables when they got busy, refilled water glasses, even learned how to work the coffee grinder. Badly, but with enthusiasm. The regulars gave him curious looks, but no one asked questions. They'd seen enough life in this neighborhood to know some stories unfold quietly. Later, as the sun dipped low and the cafe emptied, Lily asked if he wanted to come to her school's spring picnic the next day. He looked at her mom, unsure. "It's just families and friends," she said. "You don't have to stay the whole time." "I'd like to," he said quickly. "If that's okay," she nodded. "Be there at 11. And wear something normal. No fancy suits," he laughed. "Got it." The picnic was held in the schoolyard. Bright banners, kids running everywhere, parents balancing paper plates and juice boxes. He showed up in jeans and a plain blue shirt, holding a bag of apples and a blanket. Lily spotted him right away and ran over, dragging him toward the sack race. He didn't know the other parents. He didn't know the teachers. But he didn't try to impress anyone. He just sat on the blanket, cheered when Lily hopped in her burlap sack, and laughed when she tripped halfway and rolled into the grass, giggling. Afterward, they shared a hot dog and lemonade. A little boy from Lily's class came over and asked, "Is that your dad?" Lily looked at him, then at her mom, who gave a small nod. "Yeah," Lily said, smiling. "He is." Something about the way she said it, so sure, so simple, made his throat tighten. He didn't say anything, just ruffled her hair and handed her a napkin. That evening, as they walked back to the cafe, Lily held both their hands, one in each of hers, swinging between them like she'd done it 100 times before. Her mom didn't pull away. Neither did he. Back at the cafe, after Lily went to the back to finish her homework, he stayed to help clean up. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, wiping counters, stacking chairs, turning off lights. Finally, he leaned against the counter and said, "I talked to my team. I'm going to work remotely 3 days a week. I'll fly back for meetings, but I'm staying here. For now." She stopped folding napkins. "You don't have to do that." "I know," he said, "but I want to. I missed her first steps, her first word, her first day of school. I can't get those back, but I can be here for the rest." She looked at him, not with suspicion this time, but with something softer. "It's not just about being here, you know. It's about showing up when it's hard, when she's upset, when she fails a test, when she's mad at you. That's when kids need you most." "I know," he said quietly, "and I'm ready for that." She believed him. Not because he said it perfectly, but because he'd already started doing it, showing up, listening, remembering the small things. Over the next few weeks, he became part of their rhythm. He'd come in the afternoon, stay through dinner, sometimes walk them home. He learned Lily's bedtime routine: 2 stories, 1 song, the nightlight shaped like a moon. He even tried cooking once, burnt grilled cheese, but Lily ate it proudly. One rainy Saturday, he showed up at their apartment with a board game and 2 pints of ice cream. They played for hours, laughing when Lily made up her own rules, eating straight from the carton. For the first time, it didn't feel forced. It just felt normal. But then came the first real test. Lily had a bad day at school. A friend said something unkind, and she came home with red eyes and a crumpled drawing in her hand. She didn't want to talk. She just curled up on the couch, hugging her knees. Her mom sat beside her, rubbing her back. "Want to tell me what happened?" Lily shook her head. A few minutes later, he arrived with a bag of groceries, milk, bread, Lily's favorite yogurt. He took one look at her and didn't ask questions. Instead, he sat on the floor, pulled out a sketch pad and pencils from his bag, and started drawing. "What are you doing?" Lily finally asked, peeking over the couch. "Drawing the meanest dragon in the world," he said. "Want to help me give it super stinky breath?" She hesitated, then slid off the couch and sat beside him. They drew together in silence for a while, adding spikes, fire, giant claws. Then Lily whispered, "Maya said I don't have a real dad." He didn't flinch, didn't get angry, just kept drawing. "Well," he said softly, "what do you think makes a real dad?" Lily thought, "Someone who's there," he nodded. "Then I guess I've got a lot of catching up to do. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." She looked at him for a long moment, then added a heart to the dragon's chest. "This dragon protects people." "Good," he said, "because that's what dads are supposed to do." Later that night, after Lily was asleep, her mom found him washing dishes in the tiny kitchen. "You handled that well," she said. "I didn't do anything special." he replied, scrubbing a plate. I just listened. Most people don't. He turned off the water and dried his hands. I spent so much of my life trying to be impressive. Closing deals, giving speeches, looking like I had it all together. But being a dad, it's not about being impressive. It's about being present, even when you feel like you're failing. She leaned against the doorway. You're not failing, he gave a small, tired smile. Thanks, but I'll believe it when she does. The next day, Lily brought the dragon drawing to school and taped it to her desk. When Maya asked about it, she said, My dad and I made it. He's real. Something shifted after that. Not everything was perfect. There were still awkward silences, moments of doubt, nights when her mom lay awake wondering if this was all too good to last. But trust once broken doesn't come back in a day. It comes back in small moments, a shared laugh, a kept promise, a quiet presence during a hard day. One afternoon, as they sat in the cafe after a long week, Lily looked up from her book and said, Do you think we could all live in the same house someday? Her mom and he exchanged a glance, surprised, cautious. Why do you ask? Her mom asked gently. Because then we wouldn't have to say goodbye every night, Lily said, shrugging like it was obvious. And you wouldn't have to carry your shoes back and forth, Daddy. He blinked. My shoes? You leave them by the door when you sleep over, Lily said matter-of-factly. Mom puts them in a bag for you in the morning. He looked at her mom, who suddenly found the coffee machine very interesting. I didn't know you noticed that, he said to Lily. I notice everything, she said, going back to her book. They didn't talk about it right then. But later, after Lily was in bed, they sat on the porch steps in the cool evening air. She's imagining a family, he said quietly, and I don't want to mess that up. No one's asking you to move in, she said. But maybe we stop pretending this is temporary. He nodded. I'd like that. They didn't make plans that night. No big decisions. Just an understanding that they were no longer strangers, no longer just co-parents in passing. They were building something, brick by careful brick, and for the first time in a long time it felt like it might actually last. Life had settled into a new kind of rhythm, steady, warm, almost ordinary. He came by the cafe every afternoon, stayed through dinner, and often walked them home under the soft glow of streetlights. Some nights he'd sleep on the couch in their small apartment, shoes neatly lined by the door just like Lily had noticed. He never overstepped, never acted like he belonged more than he did. But he was there, reliable, present, trying in the quietest, most consistent way. Lily had stopped asking if he was really her dad. She just called him Dad now, plain and simple, like it had always been that way. She'd started saving drawings for him in a folder labeled For Dad, and sometimes she'd leave little notes on his coffee cup. You're the best. Or don't forget to eat lunch. He kept everyone. Her mom watched it all unfold with cautious hope. She still remembered the silence after he'd left all those years ago, the hollow ache of being alone when she needed someone most. But this version of him was different. Not perfect, but trying, and that mattered. Then, one Tuesday, everything tilted. He came into the cafe later than usual, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and tense. Lily was already at her table doing math homework, but she looked up when he walked in, sensing something off. He ended the call, ran a hand through his hair, and gave Lily a tired smile. Hey, Sweet Pea, did you bring the cookies? She asked, hopeful. Not today. Sorry. He sat down, but his eyes kept drifting to the window like he was waiting for something. Her mom brought over his usual coffee and lingered. Everything okay? He hesitated, then nodded toward the back room. Can we talk for a sec? She followed him, heart already tightening. In the quiet of the storage area, he leaned against a shelf of coffee beans and let out a long breath. My board's pushing hard for me to come back full-time, he said. They're restructuring and they need me in the office every day. They're talking about moving the whole headquarters, and they want an answer by Friday. She went still. How long would you be gone? I don't know. Months, maybe. They're offering a big role, more responsibility, more pressure, but also more money, more stability. She crossed her arms not to shut him out, but to hold herself together. And what do you want? He looked at her, eyes raw. I don't know. Part of me feels like I've worked my whole life for this. But the other part? He glanced toward the front of the cafe, where Lily was now erasing a math problem with fierce concentration. I finally have something real. Something that matters more than any title. She didn't say anything right away. She thought about the nights he'd stayed up with Lily when she had a fever. The way he'd learned to braid her hair, badly but with effort. How he'd sat on the floor playing pretend for hours just to make her laugh. "If you go," she said slowly, "it can't be like last time. No disappearing. No silence. If you leave, you stay in her life, calls, visits, letters, whatever it takes. And you tell her the truth. No sugarcoating. I would never," he started. "I know," she interrupted, "but promises are easy when you're standing in a quiet room. It's the lonely nights, the missed birthdays, the stress of a new job, that's when people slip. So I need to know you're ready for that." He nodded. "I am." But that evening as they walked home, Lily asked, "Are you going away again?" He stopped. "What makes you say that? You've been quiet, and you didn't bring cookies, and you keep looking at your phone like it's going to bite you." He knelt down so he was at her eye level. "I might have to travel for work soon, but I'll still call you every night, and I'll come back as much as I can." Lily studied him. "For real?" "For real." She nodded slowly, then took his hand again. But her steps were quieter on the walk home. That night, after she was in bed, her mom found him sitting on the porch steps staring at the sky. "She heard you on the phone earlier, didn't she?" she asked, sitting beside him. He sighed. "Yeah, I thought I was being quiet. Kids hear everything." He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I keep thinking about my dad. He used to say he was building a future for us. But all I remember is an empty chair at dinner, and a voice on the phone that sounded like a stranger. I swore I'd never be that man. But here I am, standing at the same crossroads." She looked at him, not with judgment but with understanding. "You're not him. You're already doing better than he ever did. But what if I fail her?" His voice cracked just slightly. "What if I choose the wrong thing?" "You won't know unless you try," she said gently. "But whatever you decide, do it for her. Not for your pride, not for your career, not for what you think you owe the world. Do it because it's what she needs." He nodded, eyes glistening in the dim light. I think I already know what I have to do." The next morning, he didn't come to the cafe. By lunchtime, worry started to creep in. Had he left already? Had he chosen the job and just walked away without saying goodbye? But at 3 o'clock, the bell chimed. He walked in holding a small potted plant, a little succulent with bright green leaves, and a folded piece of paper. Lily ran over. "You're back." "I never left," he said, smiling. "Just had some things to figure out." He handed her the plant. "This is for your windowsill. It's tough, doesn't need much water, just a little sun. Kind of like you." She beamed and carried it carefully to her table. Then he turned to her mom. "Can we talk?" They stepped outside, the late afternoon sun warm on their faces. "I told them no," he said. "I turned down the promotion. I'm keeping my remote role. 3 days here, 2 days on calls. I'll make less money and it might slow my career down, but I'd rather build a life than a resume." She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." "What about your board? Won't they be upset?" "They'll manage. Companies survive without one person. But a kid only gets one childhood." She looked at him, really looked, and saw not the polished executive, but the man who'd stayed up coloring dragons, who'd listened without fixing, who'd shown up even when it was hard. "Thank you," she said softly. He shook his head. "Don't thank me. Thank her." He nodded toward the cafe window where Lily was carefully watering her new plant with a tiny spoon. "She's the one who reminded me what matters." That weekend they went to the park together, just the three of them. Lily ran ahead chasing pigeons while they walked slowly behind. "She asked me something last night," he said. "She said, 'If you love Mom, why don't you live with us?'" Her mom's steps faltered. "What did you say?" "I told her love isn't always simple. That grown-ups have to figure things out slowly, just like kids do, and that what matters most is that we all care about her." She nodded, throat tight. That was the right answer. They didn't talk about moving in together. Didn't rush anything, but something had shifted, not just in their routine but in their hearts. They were no longer just co-parents. They were becoming a family, one honest conversation at a time. Later that night, as Lily brushed her teeth, she said, "Dad said you guys are figuring things out slowly." Her mom smiled. "We are." "Good," Lily said, spitting into the sink. "Because I like it when you're all in the same room." And that, more than anything, was the truth they were building toward. Not perfection, not speed, but presence. Together. The days grew longer as summer settled in, wrapping the neighborhood in golden light and the sound of kids laughing on sidewalks. The cafe stayed busy, but now there was a new rhythm to it, one that included a man who arrived every afternoon not as a stranger, but as someone who belonged. He still wore his nice shoes sometimes, but more often you'd find him in rolled-up sleeves, helping wipe tables or carrying bags of groceries up to the apartment above the bakery next door, the one he'd rented 2 months ago. Just 10 minutes from the cafe, he hadn't moved in with them. Not yet. But he was there, every school pickup, every bedtime story, every quiet evening on the porch. And Lily? She'd stopped counting the days he stayed. To her, he was just Dad. No explanation needed. Her mom watched it all unfold with a quiet kind of wonder. She'd spent so long building walls, protecting her heart and her daughters, that she'd almost forgotten what it felt like to let someone in, not all at once, but slowly, brick by brick, through small acts of showing up. One Saturday morning, Lily woke up extra early, bouncing on her mom's bed. "Today's my birthday," she announced, as if the whole world hadn't been counting down with her. "It is," her mom laughed, pulling her into a hug. 7 years old. My big girl. Downstairs, the cafe was closed for the day, reserved for a small birthday celebration. Streamers hung from the ceiling, a banner that read "Happy Birthday, Lily," stretched across the back wall, and the kitchen smelled like vanilla and sugar. He'd been there since dawn, mixing batter, frosting cupcakes, and trying, and failing, to pipe neat swirls on the cake. When Lily came down in her pajamas, hair wild, eyes bright, she gasped. "You made a cake?" "We made a cake," he corrected, wiping flour off his cheek. "Your mom did the hard parts. I mostly stirred and dropped sprinkles everywhere." Lily ran over and hugged him, then turned to her mom. "Can we light the candles now?" "After breakfast," her mom said, but she was already cutting slices of banana bread. They ate at the big table in the center of the cafe, sunlight streaming through the windows. Lily chattered about her wish list, more art supplies, a chapter book with a dragon on the cover, maybe a goldfish, and they listened like every word mattered. Because to her it did later. As the first guests arrived, her teacher, a few classmates, the old man from the corner table who always saved her a cookie, Lily ran around showing everyone the cake, the decorations, the little succulent on the windowsill that had grown 2 new leaves. He stayed near the kitchen, refilling juice cups and making sure no one tripped over the party hats. At one point, her mom caught him watching Lily as she led a game of musical chairs, her laughter ringing through the room. There was no grand emotion on his face, just a deep, quiet pride, the kind that doesn't need words. After the cake was cut and the last cupcake claimed, the guests drifted away, leaving behind crumpled napkins and half-blown balloons. Lily, tired but happy, sat at the table with a smear of frosting on her nose, flipping through the stack of cards and drawings she'd received. Then she looked up. "I didn't make a wish yet," her mom smiled. "You didn't blow out the candles." "I know," Lily said. "I wanted to wait." She climbed down from her chair, walked over to where her mom and dad stood by the sink, and took both their hands. "I wished we could all live together," she said simply. "Not just visit, but really live together, like a family." Silence settled over the room. Not awkward, just full. Heavy with meaning, her mom looked at him. He looked back, eyes soft, a little nervous, but sure. "We've been talking about that," he said gently. "Your mom and I. We're taking it slow because we want to do it right. But I think we're ready to try." Lily's face lit up. "Really?" "Really," her mom said, squeezing her hand. "We're looking at a new place, a little house with a backyard and a room just for you. And maybe we'll all live there." Lily threw her arms around both of them, hugging so tight it made them laugh. "This is the best birthday ever." Later that night, after Lily was asleep in her bed, they sat on the steps outside the cafe, sharing a slice of leftover cake. "It's not going to be perfect," she said, picking at the frosting. "There'll be arguments, messes, days when we're all tired and short with each other." "I know," he said. "But we'll figure it out. Together." She looked at him. Not the man who'd walked out all those years ago, but the one who'd come back, stayed, and learned how to love in action. "You've changed. So have you," he said. "You didn't have to give me a chance. But you did. And you protected her heart while still letting me in. That took more strength than I'll ever have," she smiled. We're just learning as we go. Inside, the cafe lights glowed warm against the dark. Through the window, they could see Lily's birthday banner still hanging, slightly crooked but bright. The next week, they started looking at houses. Not fancy ones, just cozy places with room for a garden, a desk for homework, and a kitchen big enough for 3 people to cook in without bumping elbows. Lily came along carrying a notebook where she rated each house. Good backyard, 5 stars. Too many stairs, 2 stars. Has a window seat? Yes. One Saturday they found it. A little blue house on a quiet street with a front porch, a patch of grass, and a kitchen that smelled like someone had baked bread there long ago. Lily ran straight to the smallest bedroom and declared it hers. That night, over takeout pizza on the floor of their current apartment, they made a plan. They'd move in a month. He'd keep his remote job. She'd keep the cafe, maybe even expand the hours. And Lily? She'd start 2nd grade with a new backpack, a new room, and both her parents walking her to the bus stop. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still bills to pay, old wounds that ached sometimes, moments of doubt in the quiet hours, but they weren't trying to be perfect. They were just trying to be there. On their last night in the apartment, Lily packed her favorite things into a box, her dragon drawing, Mr. Buttons the bear, the succulent, and the folder of notes from her dad. As she zipped it shut, she looked up. "Do you think it'll feel different?" she asked. "Living together, you mean?" Her mom said, "Yeah, like, will it still feel like us?" Her dad knelt beside her. "It'll feel even more like us, because we won't have to say goodbye at the end of the day." She thought about that, then nodded. "Okay, I'm ready." The morning of the move, the sun rose clear and bright. Boxes lined the hallway. The cafe downstairs was quiet for the first time in years, and the little blue house waited with open windows and fresh paint. As they carried the last box to the car, Lily stood on the sidewalk looking back at the building that had been her whole world. "You okay?" her mom asked. "Yeah," Lily said. "I just liked it here." "We'll visit," her dad said. "And maybe one day you'll run your own cafe right next door." She grinned. With dragons on the menu, they all laughed. And in that moment, standing between the past and the future, surrounded by boxes and hope, it felt like everything had led them here. Not because he was a CEO, not because she was a fighter, but because they were 2 people who'd made mistakes, learned from them, and chose every day to show up for the little girl who'd called him daddy without even knowing his name. Now, he was learning to braid hair, still not great at it. She was learning to trust again, slowly, carefully, and Lily, she was just a kid with 2 parents who loved her, and finally, after all this time, a home where they all belonged together.